Welcome to the Service Value Chain module. By the end of this module, you'll be able to recall and describe the interconnected nature of the service value chain and how this supports value streams and the purpose of each value chain activity. The central element of the service value system is the service value chain, an operating model which outlines the key activities required to respond to demand and facilitate value creation through the creation and management of products and services. You might think of this as the engine room of the SVS. This is where all of the action takes place. It contains 6 activities which lead to the creation of products and services and, in turn, value. The 6 value chain activities are plan, improve, engage, design and transition, obtain or build, deliver and support. These activities represent the steps an organization takes in the creation of value, although, as described earlier in the course, there is no fixed order in which these steps happen. Depending on the nature of the demand entering the service value chain, these activities will be triggered in different sequences, and not all activities will be required in all situations. The steps taken in a specific situation are defined in its value stream. Before we move on, notice the elements which are not value chain activities. Demand is an input that triggers the value chain. Products and services are the outputs that facilitate value for consumers. Also notice the link between value and demand. It is a virtuous cycle. The more successful the supplier is at creating value, the more demand they are likely to experience. Of course, the reverse also applies. Less value will likely lead to less demand. Each activity in the service value chain contributes to the value created by transforming specific inputs into outputs. The trigger input for many value streams will be demand arriving from outside the value chain. For example, a user contacting the service desk to report an incident, or a customer submitting a service enhancement request to a relationship manager. These and all other incoming and outgoing interactions with parties external to the value chain are performed via the engage activity. So this, therefore, will usually, though not always, be the first activity in a value stream. What happens next depends on the nature of demand, but the output of one activity will be an input to the next. Each value chain activity in a value stream will use different combinations of ITIL practices to process the inputs, converting them into outputs that it passes on, in turn, to the next activity in the stream, until the final output, the delivery of product or service, is achieved. In this way, the value chain activities are connected to and interact with one another until the demand is satisfied. On screen is the simple example of a value stream discussed earlier, showing how the different activities using different practices are executed in a sequence when responding to a user's need for an incident to be resolved. This value stream is initiated when a user contacts the service desk to report an issue. This is an engage activity. The incident management and access management practices are triggered, under which the desk analyst validates the user's identity and permissions and records a description of the incident and other details required to log the call. The output from this activity will be an incident record, with documentation including the user's details plus any information the desk analyst has been able to add, such as incident categorization and priority. This output will then become an input into the next activity in this value stream, which, in this case, is deliver and support. Here, a technical specialist will use the input in the analysis and resolution of the incident. Through the service configuration management and information security management practices, he is able to obtain further diagnostic information from the configuration management system and details of recent security patch updates which assist him to resolve the incident, restoring normal service. When these activities are completed, The output from this value chain activity will include an updated incident record with details of how this incident was resolved. Further output could include, for example, updated configuration details and guidance for the service desk about what to do should this incident reoccur in the future. As a final step under the Engage activity, the desk analyst is able to use the information provided by Deliverance Support to inform the user of the restoration of service and invite their feedback. This value stream enables value to the customer through the restoration of normal service. Now let's look at the individual service value chain activities, starting with Plan. The purpose of the Plan activity is to ensure a shared understanding of the vision, current status, and improvement direction for all 4 dimensions and all products and services across the organization. Let's break this statement down. The 4 dimensions, you will remember, are the components from which an organization builds a service value system, while the products and services are the outputs which enable value. So, the purpose of Plan is to ensure everyone within the organization understands the current status across all dimensions, products, and services. In other words, ensure that the what, how, and why of what the organization currently does is understood and works. The vision is a defined aspiration of what an organization would like to become in the future. So, the purpose of Plan is also to ensure that the vision is clearly articulated and communicated, along with the improvement direction, so that everyone understands where the organization is going and how it intends to get there. There is a top-down characteristic to organizational planning, and this activity includes planning at all levels. The strategic plans, goals, and objectives are set by the leaders of the organization, in line with the governance requirements and objectives. These then need to be cascaded down throughout the organization, so that at the tactical and operational levels, all plans align with and support the strategy. Before we move on, note how the SVC model shows planning as an overarching activity. All planning is performed under this activity and impacts on every area of the service value chain. The purpose of the Improve Value Chain activity is to ensure continual improvement of products, services, and practices across all value chain activities and the 4 dimensions of service management. Improvements at all levels are initiated and managed as part of this activity. Like Plan, it is an overarching activity, and all elements of the SVS, plus products and services, are in scope and should be considered for improvement opportunities. Opportunities for improvement will be input from every other service value chain activity, while the actual improvement initiatives will be the outputs of Improve. We have already discussed continual improvement as a component of the SVS, and we will come back to it as one of the key practices. So, for now, we'll move on. The purpose of the Engage value chain activity is to provide a good understanding of stakeholder needs, transparency, and continual engagement and good relationships with all stakeholders. All incoming and outgoing interactions with parties external to the value chain are performed as part of this activity. Service providers engage with their stakeholders on many levels. At an operational level, the service desk plays a key role in the Engage activity, operating as the single point of contact for all service users. Meanwhile, service level management will seek to engage customers at a more tactical level through regular service reporting and review. In addition, many organizations will appoint relationship managers who are responsible for customer engagement at a strategic level. We will review each of these practices separately later in the course, but at each level, practices and activities such as these are heavily involved in ensuring that the service provider does continually engage with stakeholders to achieve a good understanding of their needs and to provide transparency so that stakeholders get a true understanding and appreciation of the provider's efforts to fulfill those needs. Every interaction has the potential to influence a stakeholder's impression about the service provider, for better or for worse. Good engagement and communication are important factors in building customer satisfaction and loyalty. You can probably recall a personal experience when you have had to contact a service provider and have been either pleasantly impressed or sadly disappointed by the experience, and the effect that had on your perception of the service and/or service provider. Customers and users may make allowances for occasional miscommunications, but where it becomes characteristic of the service, it undermines consumer confidence and trust. Through a focus on the effectiveness and continual improvement of all Engage activities, the service provider seeks to ensure that the cumulative effect of all interactions is to strengthen its service relationships with its consumers and other stakeholders. The stated purpose of the Design and Transition value chain activity is to ensure that products and services continually meet stakeholder expectations for quality, costs, and time to market. At first glance, this purpose statement could be confused with other activities. Meeting stakeholder expectations will be one of the key drivers in any planning activity, for example. The purpose statement contains the word continually, suggesting, not necessarily incorrectly, a link to continual improvement. However, it is the second part of the sentence which ties this statement to the Design and Transition activity. The purpose is to ensure that products and services continually meet stakeholder expectations for quality, costs, and time to market. In project management, these are sometimes called the triple constraints, or the scope triangle. Time is the available time to deliver the project. Cost represents the amount of money or resources available, and quality represents the fitness for purpose that the project must achieve to be a success. There is a give-and-take nature to the relationships between the three forces. For example, a service can be delivered quickly and cheaply, but compromises will have to be made in terms of quality. Experienced project managers will usually seek to understand the relative priorities of each factor. It is particularly important to know if any of the elements of the triangle are non-negotiable. For example, the customer has a fixed budget, or the service must go live on a specific date, or the risk of non-conformance or defect is such that quality of solution is the overriding factor. Design is the art of applying constraints to a greater and greater degree until the right solution is found. Various other constraints across the four dimensions may apply. For example, a shortage of available skills may make one option less attractive. The consumer's requirements for high performance or high availability may rule out another solution. While all factors need to be considered, ultimately a solution must be designed and transitioned into the live environment in line with the customer's expectations for time, cost, and quality. The purpose of the Obtain and Build value chain activity is to ensure that service components are available when and where they are needed and meet agreed specifications. All new resources are obtained through Obtain and Build. Design and Transition is responsible for documenting the requirements and specifications for service components, which will be inputs to the Obtain and Build activity. The components themselves, obtained and built to these specifications, will be the output of this activity. These components will be made available where and when they are needed. For example, to design and transition to be deployed as part of a new product or service release, or to deliver and support as spare components for use in break-fix type activities. Finally, the purpose of the Deliver and Support activity is to ensure that services are delivered and supported according to agreed specifications and stakeholders' expectations. This equates to the operational stage of the service lifecycle. The service or product is now deployed, and day-to-day support and maintenance activities need to take place to ensure that the users can enjoy the full benefits of the service. Like all other activities, opportunities for improvement will be a key output from this activity. Well done! You've completed this module. Now try the following exercises to check your recall and understanding.